Thank you so much for joining us here on 11 Alive News at 4. Right now, we continue our coverage of the memorial ceremonies for former First Lady Rosalynn Carter.
Yeah, a repose service just wrapped for Mrs. Carter at the Jimmy Carter Presidential Library in Atlanta. That's where we find 11 Alive Savannah 11. She is live to pick up this story with more on what we are expecting over the next several hours in Savannah. The service inside, I know you were outside, we were watching online, and it was just a beautiful service remembering the very important work of Mrs. Carter.
Yeah, Faith, it really was. I was watching it as well. A beautiful service indeed for friends, family, and staff, and the public invited to come out between 6 and 10 to pay their respects as well to the former First Lady, her body lying in repose here at the Presidential Library and Museum. And, a lot of those tributes talked about her commitment to destigmatizing mental health, for one. They talked about the fact that that was a passion for her well before her time in the White House, inspired by people she met along the campaign trail when Jimmy was running for governor. She heard stories of exhausted parents, caregivers, and overcrowded and underfunded mental health facilities. And she actually asked her husband, Jimmy, what are you going to do for mental illness when you become governor? Of course, he did. And that launched the inception of multiple initiatives that helped address gaps in care and modernizing that care at a time before mental health was even a consideration for so many people. And in their tributes today, those loved ones acknowledged the Carter's legacy spanned long after their 4 years in the White House ended. With the foundation of the Carter Center, of course, they tirelessly worked to eradicate diseases. They built and repaired more than 4,300 homes with Habitat for Humanity, and Rosalynn continued her commitment to being an outspoken champion of mental health and women's rights and being a prominent voice for caregivers. I think it's notable in 1977 when she was First Lady, she was asked in an interview, do you ever get tired of being First Lady? And she says, well, with a laugh, of course, and a joke, she said, I do sometimes wish I could just rest and take a nap. But of course, she knew there was so much work still to be done, and she made sure that it was. She saw to that until her very last breath, which was taken next to her husband of 77 years as they held hands. And now that she is being laid to rest, the public being invited to honor her legacy, and all the work she's done for Georgians, Americans, and people all around the world, guys.
Savannah Levins, thanks so much. Right now, let's bring in Atlanta's traffic expert, Crash Clark, to lay out the best way to get around if you want to go out and pay your respects.
Yeah, and we have to realize that we are now back to a regular rush hour. We're done with the holidays, so we're already seeing a lot of traffic on the downtown connector. Let's take a peek because this is going to be your port of call. But the one thing we have to remember is when we are talking about heading over to the Jimmy Carter Presidential Library, there is no parking there. You will be taking a shuttle from St. Luke's Episcopal Church. That's on 435 Peachtree Street. You may want to load that into your GPS. Not too far away, a little bit closer to the connector. That's where St. Luke's Episcopal Church is. Again, 435 Peachtree Street. Then that shuttle will take you over to the Presidential Library. One thing I do want to warn you about across that top end, big wreck, 285 eastbound at Riverside Drive. So heads up rolling from 75 over to Sandy Springs. Faith?